This episode of the ChatGTM podcast is brought to you by Budget Branders, your source for custom branded cups and bags. So what makes them unique? Well, they source using a hybrid supply model, they import to keep prices low, and they have domestic backup to fill in the gaps. Learn more at budgetbranders.com or connect with Budget Branders on LinkedIn. And now it's time for the show.
Hey everybody, good morning and welcome back to the ChatGTM podcast. If you're coming back and if you haven't watched this before, you're about to find out some cool stuff that we're about to do. My name is Michael Beck, your irascible host. Joining me today, here we have Anthony Presley, the CEO of Time Forge and CTO over at CBS North Star, business partner in crime, Mr. Chad Horn.
Yo.
Listen to the bass in that voice, some silky tunes.
That's a 3-day voice right there.
And our second awesome beardly awesomeness over here, Mr. Marcus, the Wasdin.
Hello, everyone.
I don't know if anybody's ever called him the Waz. So, anyways, we're on the last day of the show. What has this been, 4 days now?
5 for us, but yes, 4 official days of NRA.
Yeah, I don't say this in a mean way, but this is the Bataan Death March of trade shows. There is so much standing that happens here. I think on my Whoop, I've counted about 95,000 steps that have happened since we got here. That equates to about 50 miles of traversal. Dear Lord. But that means there's a lot of stuff to cover here. And guess what? I didn't cover half the show. What's the hall we didn't get to?
Lakeside,
right?
We spent practically zero time in even the big South Hall.
Yeah, South Hall got little attention except there's a couple of robots over there who liked it. We did seek out some coffee machines that were good. And Coke. And yes, actually, Angela Diffley, our friends over at Coca-Cola, that is no small thing. And also our friends at Middleby over there. We might go see them today. But the reason we're here now is all the operators are gone. This is the last day of the show, and this is our chance as a bunch of guys that like to talk about tech and that are deep in the business to kind of share notes and give some ideas to you about what we saw here, what you might want to be thinking about. Yes, we're going to talk about AI probably.
I think that took 2 minutes. 2 minutes in, we got AI.
There we go. Somebody take a drink.
Who has all their bingo cards?
Yeah, so Chad, lead us in. Let's talk a little bit. What's on your mind this morning?
What's on my mind with all of this, you see these big booths. You guys can't see it right now, but if you're at the show, there's some monstrosities that are right over here. Like companies spending a lot of money to exhibit. And so what I want to start with is high level. The kind of companies that are here, what they're selling to the industry, the value they're purporting to provide or not. Does it make sense? Let's start at high level. What's going on in the industry? What does the industry actually need? And then how does that jive with what we're seeing at the show? Anthony, why don't you take us in?
That's literally called passing the buck.
Yeah. Look at this. Let's go real big here, right? So I've got a friend who's a consultant in the industry. He likes to talk about 3 things. He said, look, if you can nail these 3 things, you're going to figure it out, right? One is driving sales.
Okay.
You need to have sales. You need to have repeat customers. They need to come into your store.
Funny how that works.
It's weird, right? Sales will solve some of your problems. On the back end, you need to fix the other 2 problems you got because you probably can't change your rent, right? So the other 2 problems you've got are labor, making sure you've got the right labor at the right times,
your
deployed
big controllables.
That's it. And then you've got your COGS, right? Whatever you're doing with your food costs, right? So I tend to think that certainly on the tech side, which is where I like to play, you really need to be looking for those 3 things. And I hate to say it, but you can probably figure out what business problem you're trying to solve, which is probably the first place you should start, and then try and figure out what kind of technology strategy you want to layer on that. Actually had a lady walk up while we were setting up for this podcast, and her boss had sent her to the show and said, you need to find some AI scheduling. She literally walked in here to the Marquee booth. If y'all don't know, Marquee does not do AI scheduling.
No.
And so she got directed over to me a little bit.
Got some AI scheduling over there?
That's right, yeah. So that's what she's looking for. But some boss at a strategy level said, hey, go find some AI, and we're having a scheduling problem. So let's go fix this. And I'm afraid that a lot of the industry is doing that, and they're probably going down the wrong path. And I would say, we were talking about this earlier, some of the vendors here, their VCs behind them are saying, hey, AI is everything, and so they've turned their marketing into that and probably confused a lot of people about what I think are fundamentals.
Right.
If you can nail the fundamentals, it's, by the way, not sexy at all.
No.
Probably won't get you invited onto a panel to talk about how you're scrubbing pots, but that's probably what you need to be doing.
Yeah. So, Marcus, you were talking earlier about how what restaurants want and want to hear about right now is very different than what the vendors and the vendors' investors are talking about and what they want to see. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I love Anthony's lead in there. I'm also a big guy on food and labor, right? Like that's where I started my career in restaurants. I've worked at a couple of companies that I sold solutions for that. And to your point, there's a phrase out of the movie that I love that says, "It ain't sexy, but it's got teeth," right? Like food and labor combined are anywhere between 50 and 65% of your overall, cost of sales, right? Like, so if you don't get those things right, you're done. So I love it. I gravitate towards it. Now, back to the AI piece. So that's the second time it just got said.
Take a shot.
Yeah. We see lots of companies here that, when they started, AI was kind of a thing. So they've got AI baked into their name. There's lots of companies that were started before AI, and now all of a sudden there's little AI boxes or little trailers showing up on their name.
Yep.
From my perspective, and it's been this way for a little bit at the time now, most operators are done. They have AI fatigue. They don't want to hear about it. They want to hear about what you're solving. So back to Anthony's point, are you going to solve my cost of goods problem or give me a better cost of goods? Are you going to help me solve my labor problem? You can't just come in saying, hey, automated scheduling system. You got to come in and say, we got a labor issue, and what are the types of things that you can do to help me, kind of drive my labor costs down a little bit? So they're done hearing about AI. They don't want to hear about it. And they cringe when you say it. On the flip side, however, investors in these companies, that's all they want to talk about. If you try to talk to them about anything else, then they're not willing to invest in you. No. And they don't want to invest in you. So the vendors are in a weird spot where they're trying to have the right marketing message and say that they're solving problems, but yet they've got to feed the people that are actually giving them the money. And so that's why you see these little AI things tagged on there. And and then they're trying to solve problems too. So it's a tough spot to be in as a provider these days, I think. That's an interesting thing.
Well, there's a real truth there. I got Mike. There's a real truth there. And when they actually kicked off this event during the press breakfast and some of the data that Technomic was sharing up, 40% of restaurants didn't turn a profit last year.
40%.
40%.
It's actually a little 40 something.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit higher than that. But 45% of restaurants did not turn a profit last year. Right?
Yeah.
And so that comes back down to the unsexy stuff. They just have a tight schedule, run it smart, have your food costs right, don't have too much stuff on the shelves. And there's just so much, I hate to say it, tech stack bloat. There's so many things that people subscribe to. Like, even we think on a personal level, how many AI apps are on our phone that we've been testing around with, or how many things do we carry around in our pocket? Imagine a big company that's brought in all these people over time. They hire, they let them go, they hire, they let them go, and those people come in with their own ideas of what they want to do. They bring in new solutions, and they may or may not roll them all the way out. Then the next guy comes on and builds on top of that hidden city that was below it, and it just keeps building. Their subscriptions are still being paid for services they're not even using, and they may not even be getting the value out of things they're paying for. So to you guys, especially you two, what is it that companies should be looking out for when they're, one, picking the right solutions, or two, looking in their own house before they start making moves?
Here you go. Here you go.
With authority.
Yes.
As you were talking, I was thinking about what's happened over the last 5 or 10 years with certain brands, and I'm not going to name them, but some of the tech brands have gone out, they've either done M&A activity, they've acquired folks, or they've built out organically, which certainly happens, right? They add a feature, then they add another feature, and next thing you know, the restaurant operators or the brands that are paying for feature A from brand 1 and feature B from brand 2 suddenly now have overlapping capabilities, right? And I would say that generally someone CIO level, someone IT director should really be keeping an eye on this, looking at this so that whether or not they can consolidate their tech stack a little bit, because it happens. Over time, you end up with same functionality that's in multiple vendors you're buying from. Can you consolidate some costs there?
Right.
I'll also say that the bigger the brand gets, the more important some of those individual features are. You suddenly find out that somebody's job in marketing is making sure that the footer of the email says this particular thing, right? And so you now need a feature in your email program that person can pay attention to. Seems like a silly example, but it's totally a valid thing,
and it means the world to that person.
100%, right?
And
it's their whole job, and they've probably figured out that if you tweak it wrong, that leads to 0.5% of churn of your customer base. And so if you consolidate the tech stack and you don't have the features that are actually core to how you as a brand operate, you have some problems. So I'd be a little bit careful as this consolidation continues to happen, that you make sure you end up in the right tech stack, because I would also say, as we all know, some people say they're very open, and what open means and APIs mean, and all of that can be a little bit
not so open.
Funny. It's funny money, right? So yeah, I don't know if that's answering your question, but that's what I was thinking about as you were talking.
Well, there's also the risk of the silos that occur if you have all these different things. They're not even talking. right?
It's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. And you have to be very careful. And there's technology ways to solve that with a data lake or this or that or whatever. But a lot of that really comes down to making sure the culture of your brand is operating properly and everybody's sharing data and everybody is aligned on the vision and the execution. Because if you're not, it doesn't really matter what the tools are doing.
Right.
So, Marcus, at this moment in time where technology is evolving quickly, where restaurants are struggling to be profitable, if you're a restaurant, what is something that you really need to keep in mind that you might not be when you're talking to the vendors you might be working with? And then reverse that, right? If you're a vendor, what is something you absolutely need to keep in mind when you're talking to prospective clients as restaurants?
Got it. So I'll start with the vendor side first, and then I'll go back to the restaurant side. What I would say, if you're the provider, right, you've got to talk to restaurants about what you can, like, what is the specific thing you can do, right, that helps them either improve their operations, drive traffic into the door, which is sales. It's back to the stuff that Anthony was talking about. How do I do a great guest experience? Are there things that I can concrete do for you? Then show you some of that, messaging and things of that nature that make sure that I've delivered this before and I can deliver it for you. And that's either guest traffic, sales, reducing costs, improving operations, all those types of things. So that message has to be concrete. It can't just be, I've got a scheduling solution for you, right? It's like, I'm going to lower your, scheduling costs or your labor costs by, a half a point or a point. And then you do the math and you see that really resonates with large organizations, right? So from a provider perspective, it's really got to be about what's the outcome that I'm delivering for you, and that's how you have to tailor it. Saw a couple really good solutions out on the floor. There's a couple companies out there that you wouldn't necessarily associate with the restaurant space. We talked to one yesterday. They have this wonderful platform, but they don't really know how to sell it, and those folks, nobody knows that they have it, right? And so part of what they've got to do, they're a big name, but part of what they got to do is they've got to figure out, how do I take this platform and show you that I have a concrete example where they save somebody like $4 or $5 million on something as silly as, garbage can lids not being closed all the way, all the time, right? So city fines and stuff like that.
Wow.
But so that's a pretty neat thing. So that's the provider. The providers have to do that. If I'm a restaurant guy, which if I put my hat back on for my Churches days or my Hawks days or my Inspire days, the biggest challenge, back to something we talked about a little earlier, which is all these, kind of tech stack bloat. The thing that we didn't mention in that I was also dealing with in my career is that the organizations that choose to build their own stuff as well.
Oh, God.
Right?
Build or
so
buy.
there's organizations that build their own stuff, and then they're trying to marry that up with all the other stuff that they buy.
Yep.
Right? And it just creates kind of a big mess. So from a restaurant hat, if I put that restaurant, kind of CIO hat on, one of the things I always look for was I was looking for partners that would be partners with me in my business, right? I wanted them to be extensions of my team. I wanted that solution. Every solution is going to fall down. I've been on the solution provider side. It's going to fall down. It's how do you react when it does fall down? Are you in the boat with me? Are you helping me get this done? Are we moving this thing forward? And that's extremely difficult as an operator these days because there is so much bloat in the tech stack. And a lot of times you get a lot of this, right, when there's a problem because you've got an interface and nobody wants to own it. And so I think one of the suggestions I would give you is make sure the product does what you need it to do, right? Like that's kind of table stakes. But make sure that you feel good about the relationships that you have and their ability to deliver for you up front when you're rolling it out. And when things go sideways, make sure they're the partner that's going to be there for you and be in the boat with you and make sure it gets done. So that's the big thing I really looked for was that partnership above and beyond the product.
Love it. So let's pivot for a second. We're talking AI in general for solutions. Let's switch to physical AI. Kind of exciting, kind of sexy, pretty new. Things are starting to pop up more and more. We got delivery robots or terrestrial robots that are driving around delivering goods in cities. We have flying AI or flying delivery drones in Texas that are now delivering things within 5 minutes on a really good case. I think we were there, we ordered a tube of toothpaste, showed up in 5 minutes from order to delivery.
You actually did it?
Yeah. Cool. It's absolutely nuts. We have some video, we'll show that too. But what do you guys think about the emergence of these physical AI things that we have out there? Inside the building here, we have Flippy that's doing French fries, right? Flippy claims that 40% of French fries are wasted. That's a big problem if they can solve that, right?
Yeah.
Or we have the prep robots over there, a robot named Adam that actually cooks the whole, ramen dish for you right in front of you. Is it a gimmick? Is it here to stay? Is it hot? Is it not? Like, what do you think, Marcus?
Here's my deal on. I'm going to do a couple different categories, like the delivery stuff.
Joe
I think
Biden, that one.
is
So here's the deal.
No, a little bit different, right? The other things, like the biggest thing, at least when I was on the restaurant operator side, about some of the automation tools, and it's all of them that you put in there. They're cost prohibitive right now. Like, they are so expensive. So in no particular company, but to get like a fry cooking robot, they're tens of thousands of dollars, right? If not hundreds of thousands of dollars for these things. And so it's going to be a hard sell to most restaurant operators, because you think about, even in large systems, right? You still have a lot of restaurant operators that have 1 restaurant, 2 restaurants, 5 restaurants, right? And that's a massive commitment for them to do that type of thing. So I think over time, we will get there. I think we're still a few years out. I think that the products are awesome and they're super capable and they reduce waste and all that kind of stuff. But man, it's going to take a long time of reducing 40% fry rates to pay for $100,000.
So you're saying not ready yet?
I don't think it's quite ready yet, right? I personally. Now, the delivery stuff, I think that's interesting too. The drones are really cool to me. I'm a tech guy. I love them. Here's the challenge with drones. I think they have weight limits, right? So it's a very specific use case.
2 to 5 pound payload is what they're talking about right now.
That's exactly right. So if you're ordering food, for example, and you got a couple drinks in there, or 2 liter of Coke, you're kind of toast. Right? You're not really delivering that.
1 gallon of liquid weighs 8 pounds.
And you're done. And then you go on the ground, right? Like that, I think is pretty cool, and it's got a lot of adaptability. But again, in specific markets, it has to be a pretty dense market. And, all that kind of stuff. So I think those things have a lot of capability. You see them proliferating, right? Like, I think one of the bigger players out there has like 1,000 little robots running around, in different cities. So it's happening. It's coming out. They're going to learn. They're going to continue to learn. It's going to get better and better. Hopefully, drones get a little more weight capacity, so they can expand what they can deliver. But I think it's pretty cool. So I love it. I think it's here to stay. I just think on the in-restaurant kind of robot-y stuff, it's still a little cost prohibitive. A little more time to get the cost down there and drive the business case. On the delivery stuff, I think it's probably a little bit ahead.
Anthony, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think I'll echo that a bit. It's a little bit early. I also think, as technologists, which all of us are here, you start talking about technology, and to some degree I can end up talking about technology for technology's sake.
Yes.
And so I think it's kind of interesting. I'll use general retail as a allegory here.
Right.
So in general retail, decades ago, NCR first started patenting, IBM started patenting the electronic shelf label, right? The ESL tag. Yes. And when they came out, they were hardwired, and you had to actually run them through all of the racks in the stores, right? And so this goes back to the 70s and 80s. It's a little bit crazy. And now, if you go into Whole Foods, you don't call those ESLs, you just call them the shelf tags. Because the lingo has changed, because Whole Foods put them everywhere. The price has been driven way down, and that just is how things work now.
Right.
And so it's going to take a little while, I think, for the physical stuff to mature. But at some point in time, it's not going to be like, did you get drone delivery? It's going to be like, did you get delivery?
Right.
It just happened to come on a drone, right?
Right.
But as the prices come down, the tech gets cheaper. And everybody starts to accept it. It's not the crazy robots in the corner. It's actually just how things happen. But I think it's pretty cool. Wing is here, right? Wing's got the delivery. That's pretty awesome stuff. I do some volunteer work at the University of North Texas, and they have the physical robots on campus, right? And they're doing that. If you order food, that's how it's coming to you.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
So I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in the works here. Somebody told me this, and I thought it was a really interesting point. I was saying how cool and sexy the FryBot is, the robot Adam we saw that was making the ramen, and they go, yeah, but the robots that are going to be coming out of Musk's shop, right? What, the Atlas, is that his? No, which one are Elon's?
I forget what they're called. But
yeah,
the humanoid robots.
Right, these humanoid robots that are coming out. It's almost like AI. So we have solutions that are out here that are point solutions that AI ultimately will overlap, consume. Do you think these individual arm robots and things like Flippy and things like Adam will be replaced by just humanoid robots that can do all this stuff without and not worry about the big room and the special container, and it's a human form factor that everything we have is already built for?
What do you think? I have a very significant polarizing opinion on my side.
Okay.
Maintenance? Yes. Maintenance sucks, number one. Number two, I don't think that anybody that's investing in those type of robots on the VC side, on the private equity side, thinks that they're going to be able to do everything. But a venture capitalist was telling me that interesting thing about those is that any one use case has a massive TAM, right? Because if I can get one robot that comes in that will fold laundry, I don't have to freaking fold laundry ever again. So that humanoid robot will do one task that everybody has. So rolling napkins, fantastic, right? Nobody has to do that ever again. So I don't think the humanoid robots are going to be able to do all the tasks, maybe not even 2 tasks. But if you can find the one task that everybody does, I will happily pay the hell out of that. And that's what everybody's sinking their money into, same as Elon Musk and Tesla. They really want to find the one task that everybody will pay for.
Marcus?
Anthony, I actually like that concept. And so let's compare the one task that a humanoid robot could do and do well with a more specialized robot that does one thing, right? I think the neat thing about the humanoid robot is, let's find that task. There's a huge TAM for that, rolling napkins or whatever. But over time, that robot probably has the ability to do a second task once you kind of teach it, because it's a little more universal, right? As opposed to a purpose-built robot that does a specific thing. That's all it's ever going to do, right? So there's no expansion there. There's no future there or whatever. Let's say rolling napkins ceases to exist. That robot could potentially do something else. So I think there's a little more universal, and I like that. I like the humanoid stuff. I think there's a long way to go in teaching those things, and like, especially if that humanoid robot can use things that you humans can use, right? Like, so let's go back to cooking fries. If it's the exact same fry bank and the exact same baskets and the exact same thing, and the humanoid robot can do it, and then when the humanoid robot's broken or whatever, a human can step in and just do it, and if they can go back and forth, I think that's a pretty cool thing. But they're expensive, right? Now, the demand for that and a solution for that is not going to go away, because there's pressures on restaurants today around all that labor stuff. So whether it's compliance or whether it's cost or whether it's whatever, I mean, you go to certain states in the United States, and man, like, trying to keep up with break times and how much breaks they have and when they work and when they can't work and all kind of fun stuff, like, that's a good use case for a labor solution for you. Like, that's specific, kind of compliance, cost avoidance, and things like that. But the reason people are continuing to look at robots and kiosks and other ways to replace people doing things is because managing people these days is really, really hard. And it's not getting any easier. So I think the demand's going to continue to be there, and when there's demand, people will figure out ways to innovate.
Chad?
I want to go back to this build versus buy confidence in this climate. I know, Anthony, you are one of the most vocal, do not ever build guys in the industry. But I am hearing this from operators. More of them are leaning into this idea that it's a good idea because vibe coding, cost of development is down, and they have this notion that build all of a sudden made way more sense.
Claude can do it for me.
So scary.
And one of the reasons we hear that is because people are also understanding that you need great data and to power all of these AI applications. And so part of the justification is data is such a strategic asset. We can't trust a vendor to manage our data. We've got to own that. We've got to be the one that pulls it in to power our AI future. Talk to us about this dynamic right now, Anthony, in terms of what actually makes sense. What are they missing, if they're missing things, in terms of justifying the build side?
Wow, you painted me in there in a corner. Like, nobody puts baby in the corner.
He just did.
Yeah. All right, I want to clarify 2 things real quick. One, I'm okay if a brand has the resources. I think that the best place to deploy your own solution is anything guest facing. Because you control the interaction in the exact way that you want to. You didn't buy a solution, you want to send 2 text messages after they come, but that feature only allows 1, then I think that that's an okay place to deploy that. I think the second one has to do with data. Pulling data from all the various systems, pulling it in, and if you want to own that, I think that's a really good use of something to own. Trying to keep up with all the compliance on the back end for labor scheduling, or the 2,000 EDI integrations you need to do, the security, all of that, like, get a really good contract and pay an attorney to help you with that, and then find a third party. So that's There are brands that build their own POS. How hard could POS be? Like, I mean, it's so easy. You just ring a couple things up. Yeah, it's the hardest, right? Yeah. So it turns out. That being said, there's a thing about AI. A friend of mine likes to say, the worst it's going to be is today.
Yeah,
right?
You said that a couple of times.
Yeah. It will be better tomorrow, right? And by the way, all the algorithms behind AI that have been around for 20, 30 years, other than the Transformer stuff that Google put out a couple years ago, but really all of that stuff has been around for a long time, and it's continued to get better every year. So I would say that vibe coding apps scares the hell out of me. Right? We do it. We have AI. You guys have worked with companies that are doing AI. Mark has been at companies doing AI. You're doing AI development. There's plenty of brands and vendors in here. The checks and balances and all the stuff that came out with Claude Code on December 28th, we're not even 6 months into this, right? And so we don't even know what we don't know yet to a large degree. Security, compliance. Has anyone in here tried... Marcus has, I'm sure, but there's probably 2 people here that have tried to go edit some code that Claude or somebody created and then been like, well, this would make sense to a computer and no one else. So in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, when you want to manage it, maintain it, and add 2 new features and extend, who's doing that?
Right.
Maybe more robots, more tokens, more paying to some other vendor. So now you're not beholden to pick a vendor at this show, but now you're beholden to a new vendor that might be called OpenAI or Google or whatever, and some of those are not publicly traded. They may be making up funny numbers. Who knows what the cost is going to be in 2 years to go edit your new app that you had a robot build. So I could spend 2 hours talking on this, but those are a couple of my thoughts.
But I couldn't agree with you more. And I've always been I learned something early in my career. It was steal rather than buy rather than build. Right. So in other words, like when I was in the consulting world, not actually steal, but if somebody's got something that you can leverage, right, like go get that first. Right. Having spent, again, parts of my career on the operator side where, we did have a huge tech stack that was built, just outside of even the tech, and Anthony mentioned such great things, like this stuff's getting built, how do you support it? How do you maintain it? When I was in a position where maybe that internal tech stack was falling down, but I didn't necessarily own that group, right, or have responsibility for that group, they're a solution provider to our operators, and I would go back and be like, hey, we're not meeting their expectations. I didn't have internal SLAs. I could not hold them accountable like I can an external party. So don't forget that part, right? Like you sometimes can get yourself stuck, right, in a position where, yikes, like I can't really get done what I want to get done. The other piece, to your point too, if I go back and put my other hat on, which is, having been, the head of a business unit that was delivering software, I think one of the areas that like vibe coding and Claude Code and things like that can be helpful is the product management group that I saw was really experimenting with that stuff, right? So, you got really savvy product managers, and I've had the pleasure of working with some really, really good product managers. And now they have some tool sets to do some mock-ups, right, to kind of give the engineers the vision of what they're trying to create, maybe what the UI is supposed to look like, maybe what some of the workflows should look like from an operator's perspective. Right. And then they can then turn that over as a spec of sorts to actually really be built by engineers, right? And really be built by people that are thinking about security and integration and scalability, right? And people that know the code so well that when you do have a problem with a customer and there's a bug in the code, they can go right to it and they can fix it, right? So I think there's a model where product management can really leverage these tools to paint the vision to the engineers that are going to build it. And then, of course, the engineers should leverage AI tools to help them build things. But again, based on solid engineering principles with security built in and driving things forward. So I think there's a neat play in the product management piece for some of the vibe coding.
All right, I'm going to throw another monkey wrench in the works, and hopefully this isn't too contentious, but I'm seeing it all over the news, and I'm sure you gentlemen have an opinion on this. The explosion of AI data centers and the resistance that the communities are showing to these things showing up. Are they right or are they wrong? People's houses are getting shot up. The local government officials that are approving these AI data center projects, water consumption, resource consumption, electricity and power. Although the problem with power here is it's not, you can't privatize energy, which means we have to wait on the government, which takes about 8 years to spin up a power plant these days. Where's this going? Like, what do you think about all this? It's like, I'm not touching it.
He threw the political bomb out there. I guess I'm gonna try to be.
We're gonna thread the needle here.
Yeah, I think at the very top, I think it's super important that we don't fall behind on this. So I think having
Agreed.
Somewhere for that compute to happen is a must, right? Like, so we got to do that. So that's kind of thing number one. Thing number two is, I understand, would I want a data center in my backyard? Probably not, right? Like, I get it. And so I think, if there's ways for us to find places that it's minimally, invasive or what have you, there's that. Now, the one thing that I do see, and again, it's one guy's opinion, like when they move in, the power consumption is crazy, right? Great. Let that data center pay for the power. What I don't necessarily agree with personally is local governments or whatever with the Public Service Commission, which is how it works in Georgia, like increasing increasing my power rates to subsidize a data center. I don't like that, right? Like, hey, have the data center go in and they're consuming the power, freaking pay for it, right? But don't necessarily do things to subsidize their power. Now, they're doing that to try to lure them in and create the jobs and that kind of fun stuff. I get it. But I don't know, man. It's a big issue. Again, trying to stay as fact-based as I can be and not be super political. I know it's a hot-button issue for a lot of people. I think that we just need to look at the facts and kind of try to steer clear of the misinformation and things like that are out there. But it's very important. We need to figure out how to do it. Then there's got to be a way for us to be able to thread the needle to not fall behind in kind of deploying data centers that can support this stuff. So
I'm with that.
Anthony, Marcus mentioned misinformation. There is more noise than there has ever been, and it's harder than ever in a lot of ways to know where to go for quality information. So if you're a restaurant operator and you're making, you have a problem to solve, technology can probably help you out. What's a good process they should go through to efficiently get good information on how to solve that problem?
You like to hand these loaded questions.
He delicately grabbed the microphone, I noticed, too.
Yeah, absolutely. You did take the last one, by the way.
Right on the bearded chin.
I agree with everything you said. So,
okay, good.
And I would say that it's really an interesting spot to be in right now, because there are a lot of solutions that if you just ask your peers, you probably are not going to get the exact right answer for your brand.
There's a bias, right?
There's a bias, and it's interesting. This particular industry, unlike many others that I've worked in, often makes deals because I met somebody at a happy hour, and
he's a scratch golfer.
Love them when they break my way.
That's right. Yeah, they're like, "Hey, Marcus, I met this guy, and he's got this cool thing. We're gonna do it." And you're like, "What? What happened? Has anybody vetted it? Do they have a customer? Let's go there." But I was at dinner on Friday. There's a press release that broke here with a vendor that highlighted a brand about how awesome it was. And that guy is running around talking about this vendor, and it's awesome. And he has lots of great things to say. And I was at dinner on Friday with someone else that had used it. And I mentioned the press release, and this operator turned and looked at me and said, "Doesn't freaking work. We tried it for 6 months. It's out."
Oh, my God.
And so, but they both operate very differently, right? I would say that in addition to asking your trusted peers, and there are a couple of those kinds of groups out, I would also say there are some consultants in this space that are a little bit, maybe you think they're on the up and up, but they're only recommending people who pay them. So that happens and is starting to get a really bad rap.
On the scale.
Yeah, a real bad rap. So I'd watch out for those. So it's hard. I would say look for LinkedIn posts, look for some publicly available information, and then I don't love RFPs on either side of the house, but you do need to have a criteria. You need to have something you're looking for. And I would argue that more than half of your RFP should not be where you've been, because you'll just pick the same vendor you've been with the entire time. It needs to be where you're going and, skate to where the puck is, right? That lovely little analogy. Does that answer your question?
Beautifully. Marcus, anything you want to add?
I love the one point I want to key in on is the last one he made, which is look for where you want to go.
Yeah.
Because there's been so many times where, again, on the solution provider side, I would go into an event, we would fill out the RFP and all that kind of fun stuff, and then what they want to do is they want the system I have to replicate exactly the way they've been doing it before. Like, I mean, literally, it's like, well, you know what? hey, we can accomplish the same thing, and you can do it in 3 steps with us.
Right.
It used to take you 7 steps, and they're like, nope, we want the 7 steps. That's what our people need. We want the 7 steps.
Exactly
we want your thing to make the 7 steps. So yeah, that is a huge point. It's like, figure out where you want to be and know that there's change. And look, I get it. Change is hard in restaurants, right? It's really hard. You got a 5,000 restaurant chain, and you got to change something inside of there. It's so difficult, but make sure you pay attention to that. But please, please, please make the investment in where you want to go, as opposed to just trying to jam everything in the way that's always been. I think that was a huge point you made.
All right, so I'm going to take us out on a fun note, not so contentious. We're at the food show. What was your best bite, whether it's on the show floor here or when you were in town? Chad, I'm going to start with you because I know you like some food.
There were a lot of good things, but just because of the consistency and how many years they've been showing up and how every time it's so ridiculously awesome and refreshing. Natalie's, this morning.
Yeah,
every stinking time,
juice.
Every year we know where they are, and even if it's out of the way
Full
for where
bottles,
we are,
y'all.
I'll make that walk. Natalie's juice is a fantastic product.
All right, AP?
So,
It didn't have to be in the building.
well, I'm going to tell you, too, that we're in the building because I am a Dr. Pepper fanatic.
Okay.
And if you walk over there and you get a Dr. Pepper shake, it is fan-freaking-tastic.
Dr. Pepper shake?
It's so amazing.
Okay.
So
Okay.
amazing. I had 3 every day I've been here.
Oh my God.
But they're little sample cups, right?
Okay. I'm
Right.
thinking like,
Yeah. And just straight past that is 2 Rivers.
Okay.
And they have
they're meat?
tri-tip.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
meat, it's tri-tip, and pork loin, and tacos. And they're fantastic.
yeah, that was pretty
way over there.
phenomenal. Marcus?
Yeah, we got to try those.
I'm going to say one, and these guys are going to laugh because it's just right over there. And there's a little vendor called Tater Kegs.
Tater kegs.
And tater kegs are these massive, looking tater tots, but
Yeah.
they're filled or stuffed with either cheese or bacon or
Jalapeno.
any number of different things. And so I think my favorite thing on the floor was tater kegs.
Okay. And I'll say levels of innovation. We went to an event this time. Who put on levels of innovation, by the way?
A lot of different companies. Nestle was one of them, but I couldn't list them all for you.
Yeah, so, I mean, we had A5 Wagyu. We had,
gosh.
pastrami, soy miso pastrami short ribs. I don't know how they brought that together. That was absolutely fantastic. And in that same building, they had a Bananas Foster with a Nutella fountain accompanying that. I just wanted to lay under it and go, oh, it was so freaking good. Well, guys, this has been great. I know we have a show floor to get to here, but it's always great hanging out with y'all. And really, everybody, thank you for spending some time with us. We're really eager to talk about technology, how to solve problems. Anthony, he helps people with workforce management solutions, also has a POS solution. You know, Marcus is here as a big brain in our industry and knows a lot of stuff about everything. He's basically Tyrion Lannister. He drinks and knows things. No, I don't know how much he drinks, but he definitely knows some things. And Chad and I just love help companies go to market, get off the ground, get them visible in the marketplace, and help tell stories like we're doing right here, right now. So for now, this has been the ChatGTM podcast and our short mini panel here. Signing off here from the NRA Show in the last day. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a blessed day, and always, random acts of kindness, sprinkle that stuff everywhere. You never know whose day you're going to make better. Take care, guys.
Thanks.